Hello everyone and welcome to Vlogmas Day 21. In today's video, I want to talk about 10 ways that you can begin to break generational cycles of poverty, of disease, of spiritual and emotional manipulation, and abuse. I'm trying not to use that word because I know that YouTube will probably flag my video, um, and to break any generational cycles in general. And I'm using the word generational cycles and not generational curses because curses tend to evoke this idea that you are powerless to change your situation. It also is not very fitting as a Christian person to assume that I'm cursed. If I am a believer, then I cannot be cursed. I'm free from all of that. So it really is more of a way to address the accountability piece of what happens to us in our lives. So I want to talk about breaking generational cycles today. So I hope you find this video super helpful. If you do, please like this video, comment, and share it with anyone that might benefit from this information. First, I think it's really important that if you want to change anything in your life, you have to ask yourself this one question. And that question is, can this be different for me? Can this look differently for me? And I think, to be honest with you guys, a lot of people never make it to that question. They're afraid to ask themselves, will this be different for me? Can this be different for me? How can this be different for me? Because the idea of dreaming even is part of breaking generational cycles. A lot of us were never allowed to dream. We were never allowed to really let our imagination run wild so that we could even begin to dream of a different life. Just recently, I was standing outside on the balcony here in Mexico, and I was thinking about how as a child, I used to see these places on TV and think I could never be here. This is not a place for me. I was sort of like a city girl. Our family had been in a cycle of poverty, and I thought there's no way that I would ever be here. And I was just reveling in the fact that somewhere along the way, both of my parents sort of broke their own cycles and encouraged us to dream and encouraged us to just go for it. And if you fail, you can come back home, kind of thing. And so, and I was thinking about how grateful I am that I had an opportunity to just dream and to say, you know what if? So it is really, really important that you are able to ask yourself, how can this be different for me? What can I do so that this is different for me? And this is really the first point that I want to make, which is that you have to have self-awareness and accountability. It's really, really difficult in a world that praises victimhood, in a world that praises, blame and shaming, particularly our parents and society. This is not to say that your parents don't have an effect on you. They 100% do. I've talked about this in several videos. But you have to actually forgive them for just being human. They may have harmed you. They may have done, undeniable harm, but you do have to forgive them. And that doesn't mean that you forget what they've done, but it means that you no longer let that fester so that you can say, okay, now that this has happened to me, what can I do next? And that's the accountability piece, that I am now an adult and it is my responsibility to break these cycles if I want things to be different for me and my children. This is probably the most painful part for people because it's very easy to, once you start to become aware, to start to blame your parents for not teaching you better. And I want to say that this is a very normal part of this journey. It's very, very normal to want to blame your parents and to be upset with them even. We're afraid of our emotions. We're afraid of our anger. We're afraid of our disappointment. So we never feel these things. But part of being aware is understanding that you have some pain and some resentment maybe around what you never learned, what you never got, what you never received as a child or even as a young adult from your parents. And that is a massive piece of change. That is a massive piece of breaking generational cycles. So cultivate self-awareness and accountability. Be okay with saying, this was not my fault, but it is my responsibility to change something now. Number two, I asked at the beginning, I said, you have to ask yourself, how can this be different for me? And really what I'm saying there is like, how can I learn something or educate myself in a way where I don't become like this or I don't become like them? I think a lot of us are afraid to do that because we don't want to make it seem like we're bashing our family members or bashing our ancestors. But the reality is that part of becoming a different person means that you do acquire skills and knowledge that your ancestors, your parents, your grandparents did not have. That's an essential part of breaking generational cycles, because a lot of times people make decisions simply because they just don't know any better, simply because they are just using the tools that they have at the time. So how do I gain the skills and education, whether that's financial, whether that's practical life skills, whether that's actually going to a university, whether that's developing some sort of like curriculum for yourself so that you can grow and change over time. A lot of people, they dunk on university, they dunk on college education, but the truth is that a lot of times in college, if you choose the right major, that's where you learn about how different life can be. Particularly if you come from a generation from a cycle of poverty, you actually learn how other people live and how other people think. Oftentimes people say don't go to college, but you get exposed to different people in the world when you go to university. And if you play your cards right in university, you will be exposed to how people who live healthy, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially free lives, how they live, how they think, how they behave. And it might give you some mentors, some people to look up to in terms of how you want to model your life. One of the biggest reasons why people never change is because they never see anything differently. And when we tell people, don't go to university, or don't go to college, which I understand, like the financial piece really matters, right? But you're also confining them to a world view that has kept them in the same spot. So this is why I'm such an advocate for university. And of course, and I've said this in several videos, like I think that people should go to the cheapest university they can find. They should major in something that is going to give them a life skill, even if they don't like it. So, something like accounting or engineering or computer, whatever, teaching, like go get a degree in something that will give you a lifelong career. And then you can work on your passion on the side. That is something that my parents gave to me to help us break out of our cycle of poverty, because no one had gone. We are first generation college students, my sisters and brothers. We are first generation college students. We are also first generation, like successful homeowners and, business owners and wealth builders because of that piece of knowledge that my parents gave us. Now, would they do some things differently? 100%. They probably wouldn't like force us to go to college, a certain university, right? They were very, they were very African in that sense. But what it did is it opened up our doors, or opened up our horizons to see how the other world lives. So now I have this different view of life. I'm not stuck in my bubble. You have to get out of your bubble. Number three is you have to build emotional intelligence. It requires a different kind of resiliency to change. It requires a different kind of resiliency to change while your entire environment is telling you that you're an idiot for doing so. Because what often happens when you're breaking generational cycles, and I talk about this with my health and fitness clients, is that people are very much hell bent on keeping you the same. They are hell bent on you not changing because you are disrupting the cycle. You are disrupting the flow of things. And if you're not careful, you will get sucked right back in. So being able to be emotionally intelligent and say, okay, this person is feeling this because they're scared. Not because they hate me, not because they wish me death. They are scared. And when people are scared, sometimes they will do anything They don't care if you're drowning. They will pull the life raft away from you so that they can feel safe. So just understanding that and building the emotional intelligence, it's also about understanding how other people behave and think can help you relate to people in a more healthy way. A lot of us come from places where we have generational cycles of even like emotional and verbal abuse. That comes from a lack of emotional intelligence. So being able to communicate in a healthy and effective way comes from being emotionally intelligent. There are so many books, there's so many, YouTube videos you can watch now. There's so many lectures, free lectures online that you can watch on emotional intelligence. This is actually the number one skill that you need to be successful in corporate America and to be successful as an entrepreneur. If you do not have emotional intelligence, you will lose. Because a lot of people, they're so emotional. They can't manage their emotions that they often ruin moments. They ruin relationships. They ruin opportunities because they're so emotional. They ruin their life because they're emotional. And that is something that we have to get rid of. We have to be able to manage and healthfully reflect and process our emotions. That skill is 100% necessary. Number 4, establishing healthy boundaries. Establishing healthy boundaries with substances, people, places, things, and even with yourself. Learning to say no without guilt is an essential skill for getting out of poverty, for getting healthy, for breaking the cycle of verbal and emotional abuse. Because you have to be willing to say, no, you will not speak to me that way. I will leave and I will come back when you speak to me in a way that demonstrates your respect, that demonstrates that you value me as a human being. Saying no, no, I will not go and eat all of this unhealthy food with you so that you feel comfortable. No, I will not stay out and drink with you. I need to go work out in the morning so that I can have my mind right before I go do this next task. No, I will not hang out with you guys because every single time we hang out, someone gets into a shooting, a fighting, an argument. I don't want to be around that. When you guys learn to treat people with respect and with dignity, then I will bring my children around. That person is unsafe around children. No, thank you. I refuse. I will not condone this behavior by continuing to allow them to be in my presence. Establishing healthy boundaries. Number 5, prioritizing your physical and mental health is underrated. It is so underrated for breaking generational cycles. Clearly, it's necessary for breaking the generational cycle of disease, of unhealth, diabetes, high blood pressure, all of that, right? But did you know that a life hack is being physically and mentally healthy? When you are physically healthy, you respect yourself, you have more confidence, you can do all of the aforementioned items when you are physically healthy because it requires a certain level of discipline, of motivation, of dedication to get healthy. And once you can do that in your physical life, one of the hardest things for people to do is control what they put in their mouth. That is one of the hardest things for people to do. And once you develop that self-control in that area, you can develop self-control in every area. And once you have that, you are unstoppable. You are unstoppable. Many people will make it to a certain status, but they won't go over because they're not physically healthy. Find a therapist, speak to someone, even if there are all sorts of free therapy programs now where you can get like 5 free sessions. There are programs now where you're on a sliding scale, so if you don't have the money for it, but getting your mental health in check, learning to speak with someone who is a professional about what's going on, particularly as you're changing your life, is crucial. When I was making massive changes, massive leaps in my own personal development, I had to have a therapist because it was very painful, number 1. And number 2, I was navigating like how do I deal with this situation with this person and what do I say here and I'm feeling this, and being able to have someone help you to navigate life professionally, emotionally, with your family, relationships. They can also help you to see your value and to show you how to be treated respectfully and with dignity, which is something that is very difficult for people who have been in generational cycles for very long. So I highly encourage you to please get some emotional helps, get some mental help. Go see you can go to a biblical counselor at your church. I'm sure they have Christian counseling centers and places, and a lot of those places offer sliding scales. So really, really inexpensive therapy. And I highly recommend that. Okay, number 6, heal spiritually. And I want to talk about spiritual abuse for a second. Um, okay, people who have been spiritually abused often run from spirituality. I should say they run from religion, right? And that I can understand. I think I have do I have a video on that already? Maybe not. I can understand. A lot of people are hurt, and then people use the church or they use religion to justify that hurt. And I want to make sure that I just say outright that that is very wrong. It's inappropriate. It is abuse. And that's not okay. But we are not two-dimensional creatures. We are three-dimensional creatures. And so you need to learn how to have a relationship with God that does not involve an abusive church. It does not involve abusive church members. Figuring out a way to get into a healthy church or a healthy spiritual community is so important, because you cannot go at life alone. You can't. I know people think that they can, but you can't. You actually need guidance, and you need a community. And when when you heal spiritually, you also realize that there are some things that you can't do on your own, and that's okay. One of the generational cycles that people are actually caught up in is this belief that they have to do everything on their own, and that if they just do it all right, then things will happen for them. And that's simply not true. We are three-dimensional creatures. We have a spiritual life as well. And so being able to heal from that is really important. Heal from that spiritual abuse so that you're not walking around triggered by things that happened to you 15, 20 years ago. Because oftentimes what we do when we've been like spiritually abused, or we've been emotionally abused or verbally abused, is that we are triggered by everyone and everything, even as like adults. So you'll respond out of your like 7-year-old self because you never got healing from that. And so it's really important that as you're on this journey of breaking generational cycles, that you look into your spiritual well-being. I would encourage you, honestly, to read your Bible for yourself. Get like an ESV, an NIV Bible, and read that for yourself. Get into a devotional, watch some sermons on YouTube by healthy pastors, and find a local church that is spiritually healthy, because it is an essential part of your growth and development. Okay, number 7, find people who have either been in your situation or are currently walking through a similar situation to connect with. One of the things that happens when you're breaking generational cycles is that you sometimes lose your family temporarily because they're still stuck on whatever junk they're stuck on, and so you feel like you don't have anybody. So it's really important to find a community that you can feel, where you feel heard and supported. That's why like families of, or they have like family members of alcoholics or family members of, narcotic users. Those are really helpful, like support groups in that way. One of the reasons why people don't change is because they're afraid that they're going to lose everybody that they've ever had. That's a real fear, because temporarily you do lose people. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that. You do lose people. So you want to have a support group who can be there for you and walk you through that. As I said before, I recommend that you find someone who's currently walking through it, but also someone who has already walked through that and is out on the other side. It is so important to find someone who's on the other side and doing other things with their life, because it gives you like a vision for what your life could be like when you're feeling the most hopeless. Okay, number 9, if you are a parent, trying to break the cycles that your parents repeated is very, very challenging, but it's also an essential part of just like doing something differently, like quite literally being like, okay, what didn't I like about my own parenting? Okay, I'm going to do something different, and just trying it and not being afraid to try new things and go, okay, well, that didn't work. Let me try something else. The simple fact that you are aware that things were not right is a sign that you are healing and growing and changing, and probably a sign that you're doing better than what you received. Because I think a lot of people are afraid that, if I don't do things exactly how they did them, then I'm going to turn out, my children are going to turn out this way. It's like, no, you can actually do different things. And there's like 95 different ways to raise children. So you can just try something new and say, okay, well, we did this when we were younger, but that never really worked out for me. Like, my kids will never go to sleepovers. Like, I don't believe in them anymore. I don't think they're healthy. I don't think they're safe. 95% of the time, they're not safe, actually. Like, police officers will tell you that. Like, that it is, they do not let their children go to sleepovers. That was something that we did as kids. I don't think kids should go to sleepovers. I won't be doing that. A lot of times, when we talk about these cycles of like hiding abuse, it's with family members at events like this. So it's like, no, we just don't do that. We don't do that. That's okay. Because we're gonna break the cycle of, there being like secret, oh, weird cousins and uncles, and no, we're not doing that. You guys can stay right here and you can go till 10 o'clock and then I'll pick you up. And then lastly, what you need to know about breaking generational cycles is that you're probably going to be the one leading by example. That doesn't that doesn't mean that you are going to be loved or appreciated. It means that you're probably going to be rejected initially, then you're going to be mocked and ridiculed, and then you're going to feel separated, and then people are going to start asking you, "Oh, well, how did you do it?" So you will have to be the one that leads by example. And that's okay. It's going to be very, very difficult, but I should say it might be very difficult, but that's part of being a cycle breaker. When you're a cycle breaker, you are the person that leads. You demonstrate, okay, we don't have to do this. We don't have to be a family of alcoholics. We don't have to be a family of drug dealers. We don't have to be a family of broken homes. Like, we actually don't have to be that family. I know you guys, oh, well, everybody's divorced in my family. Oh, everybody's this. No, they don't have to be. You can break that cycle. Oh, everybody talks like this in my family. Okay, well, don't be the person who does it. Oh, they're just loud and like curse at each other. No, be the person who does it. Like, lead by example that way. It's not always going to be easy, but you will be the person at the end of the day that people are going to go to and go, okay, well, how did you change? And that's when it becomes worth it. All right, you guys, that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.